Hey guys, welcome back. I'm out here in one of my favorite spots. I'm on one of my favorite trails and it's a beautiful August day. Life's good. I'm going to talk about something today that I started talking about, probably a few weeks ago, and it involved my trails. Now, up until recently, you guys have seen me out here doing all kinds of things on these trails, from hauling logs to driving go-karts to walking the dog. These trails get used every single day, and as a result, I want them to be relatively good shape. Now, they aren't always in good shape, however, because of things like torrential rain or maybe brush and trees fall on it. And so I was looking for a long time for something that would groom these trails without digging up all the roots. I've got that Coyote tractor up there and I've got a box blade. I could sink that box blade down into soil like this trail here, and heck, it would do a wonderful job of smoothing it out. But a lot of these trails have some beautiful dirt for about this much of the surface, from the surface. Beneath that surface, it's full of roots. If I take my box blade, it's probably going to do a lot of damage to those roots, and it's not going to be the best fit because I also have rocks and some other surfaces I don't want to necessarily scrape right away, like some of my wood chips I've put down, for example. What I'm looking for then is something that will take the existing ground and just smooth it out. Not dig it up, smooth it out. What I came across was called a drag harrow, and that's what I'm going to show you today. I'm going to use it not only to groom these trails, but also to groom my field over there. That field used to be ferns. Check out my other video if you're interested in seeing that transformation. But I'm going to use a drag harrow behind my ATV in order to smooth things out around here. One thing that's great about the drag harrow is that when I'm using it on trails like this, it takes some of the wood chips, which I have packed in down here. It takes some of the dirt, which I have right here, and it essentially knocks all the high spots off and fills in the low spots. Another great thing about that drag harrow, and if you guys look down here, I don't have a lot of loose debris on this trail, and there's a reason for that. I've already gone down with the drag harrow. In just a minute here, well, maybe we'll go right now, but this drag harrow, what it tends to do is it tends to pick up loose stuff like this. I am constantly stopping my machines, picking up loose stuff like this, because it's fallen on these trails all the time. Just look at walking down this one. I got these little loose bits and pieces and stuff that falls out of the trees like this. And to be honest with you, I got to pick up some of that, because if I don't, inevitably it's going to get jammed up into my machine or hit me or something and cause a lot of problems. So having something like a drag harrow was my idea to hopefully pick up these little bits and pieces and smooth out the soil. Fortunately for me, I think it's the perfect fit. I think it works perfectly. Let's go on over here. We're now in the meadow area. I guess I called it a field a minute ago. Here's the drag harrow. This thing is nothing more than essentially some steel wrapped up into looks like a fence with some tines on it. And if you guys look down here, those are essentially the tines. If you can imagine, they look like a fork. See them right there? They're on every few inches on this drag harrow. See them there? So what's essentially happening is I'm going to take this piece, and it's essentially a chain with a ring, and I think this is a 6-foot bar here, or 5-foot bar, excuse me. I'm going to hook this onto my ATV. I'm going to pull it around. This will do exactly what I said it will do. It'll smooth things out, it'll dig up the soil, and it'll make the field not just better looking, but more user-friendly, especially when I go to plant grass seed. Now, the thing I wanted to show you before I get started with this drag harrow is how it can pick up brush. Because let's face it, I don't have soil on every trail, but I can tell you one thing. I got limbs and bits and pieces of trees that have fallen down on every single trail. If I stop and pick that up, it's gonna be the death of me. This thing, this drag harrow, I just took it out on one of my trails, and look at all the stuff it's already picked up. And we're not talking massive stuff all the time, but it's picking up little stuff like that. It's picking up branches like this. Okay, and that's just one less thing that I got to pick up. And that's sort of the goal here with the drag harrow. It's not just going to smooth out the soil, but it's going to pick up all these little pieces, and it's going to pull it along and get it out of there. Jeez, it likes to grab onto things. But it's going to pull it along and essentially make one less thing for me to have to do, in addition to smoothing out the soil. So I'm going to dig all these bits and pieces out of here so we can see it in operation. And then we're going to drag around in the meadow here, and then we'll take it out to a trail and we'll see how it does on the trails where you can actually see some of the sticks still in place. So let's go. Now, if you guys decide to pull in this direction, what's going to happen is all these little teeth down here, or I think I called them tines a minute ago, see them all here on every single row? They're going to essentially be dragged, and that's going to act as sort of a cultivator, I'll call it, a little bit of a stirring up of the soil. It can go in two different ways though. It can be pulled sort of in this angle where it's somewhat subtle, it's somewhat less aggressive, or if you put this bar on the other side of the drag harrow, the teeth, why do I call them the teeth? I guess I like sawing. The tines will essentially be at a steeper angle, and so it's going to dig in more aggressively into whatever you're dragging across. So for me, I've got it set up currently on the less aggressive angle for those tines. If I put it on the other side, it'll be more aggressive, and you'll see it because it'll dig up the soil a little bit more, dig in a little bit more. What I'm going to do for this go around, because we're dealing with just pure soil, I'm going to choose the more aggressive route. So all I have to do is unhook it. Not sure why there's a zip tie on there. I actually bought this thing used off, well, I just bought it off Kijiji, the Canadian version of Craigslist. So I bought this used because, you know, there's no moving parts to this, and this thing is probably 100 years old already. No point in me buying a brand new one. So you just undo those hooks, and as I mentioned, you can take the bar and put it on the other side. And there's hooks over here as well, and you just do these things up just like you did before. Okay, well, that was kind of fun. That was not too long, as you can tell. I like to get out on my Sportsman here, the 700, and put a bit of dirt up from time to time, but I'm getting kind of old, so I don't tend to hit jumps or do any burnouts or anything like that. Maybe when I was younger. Anyways, back to it. So the drag harrow worked quite well, and as you can tell with the aggressive tines, I think that's what they're called, the aggressive tines pointed downwards, it really sort of cultivates the top inch or two of soil and makes it kind of nice looking. I think this will really promote growth, and if I'm going to plant grass seed, this is definitely what I want here. So if you've watched my other videos and you saw me get rid of the ferns, last thing I'm going to touch on is the fact that those pesky ferns are back. So I think I'm going to be cutting this area with a lawnmower next year, but maybe the drag harrow will help. Let's have a look at it before we go here. As you can see, we picked up little bits and pieces of stuff that was out here in the field. I think with the exception of one big piece. Yeah, that piece over there. It picked up pretty much all the little bits and pieces of sticks and whatnot that was out in the meadow here, so that worked out well. If we get a good look down here, you guys can see the tines here. You can see them right here. Let's get that hook out of the way. Get up there. You can see the tines right there. That's what's actually planted down in the soil and what's gonna essentially drag against the ground. So you guys can see there's a whole bunch of them everywhere. You see these hooks. So if you haven't seen a drag harrow before, now you know exactly what it does. One thing that's convenient with this thing, having the ability to take that bar, put it one way or the other way, so drag this way or that way, really makes it convenient because it gives me two choices: more aggressive, digging into the soil, or less aggressive. I think the last thing we're going to do here, we're just going to take it down one of the trails. You guys can see exactly what it does for my trails. Be aware that my trails aren't tilled up like this. It's pretty much hard packed soil. There's some clay in there, some sand, wood chips, roots, all kinds of stuff, rocks. So we're going to go over that and see how it works out. I think for that, what we're going to do is we're going to switch off to the less aggressive for the first time around, and then probably as the trail gets smoothed down with the drag harrow, we'll switch over back to the more aggressive. So let's give that a go. Necessarily take one pass and be done, but if it takes a few, that's just fine. This, using my Sportsman 700, really pulls it quite easily. I was in four-wheel drive for the most part, and with these big knobbies on here, it certainly does the job. This thing isn't overly heavy, although it is quite stout. If you're looking for a drag harrow, do like I did, see if you can find one used off Craigslist. I bought this off a gentleman who probably used it on a farm at one point, and it certainly does the trick. Anyways, hooked up to my Sportsman, as I mentioned, really clears the trails just nice. You guys can see behind me, I probably have a few more passes here. What it's going to do is get rid of those low spots by knocking off the high spots. Overall, I'm quite happy with the drag harrow. If you guys have any questions at all about how it works or whether I'm liking it thus far, please put it down below. Tune in next time because you're sure going to see me use this quite often, because there's nothing worse than driving around in my old golf cart and rattling my teeth right off my head. Guys, thanks for watching. You all take care, and I'll see you next time.